The next bill on the calendar for the day is House File 2682. The clerk will report the bill.
House File number 2682, number 4 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to legacy, the second engrossment.
There are no amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File number 2682.
Third reading. Discussion. I recognize the member from Ramsey, the author of the bill, Representative Lilly.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. Thank you for hearing the legacy bill today. It's important for the people of Minnesota, the good work that we're able to do with these legacy funds. This bill will keep people working on habitat projects all over Minnesota, from one end to the other, all from side to side. It also provides important extensions for funds canceling at the end of June here in a few days, and some ending next June. COVID-19 has been devastating, especially for our arts and cultural community and organizations, and this bill allows for them to make use of the funds and hopefully keep them alive through the crisis. This bill helps Minnesotans all across Minnesota. So going into the bill itself, the first article is the outdoor heritage part of the bill, and that comes from the Outdoor Heritage Committee, which two of our members are active on that committee, Representative Fabian and Representative Becker-Finn. And hopefully later either one of them or both will speak to some of that. It came out of, the bill essentially came out of the committee, 12-0. With a solid vote. They put a lot of work into this. They meet all summer. The staff does an amazing job, I feel. I kind of follow it. I used to be a member, and I'm really proud of the work that they do. There's citizens especially seem to put a lot of time and effort. You've got even a couple famous people that shocked me, like Ron Scherer's on there, and anyways, it's just kind of fun to see, but they look at these projects and study it hard and put a lot of thought in it and make sure that they're fair and good across the state of Minnesota. So MMB numbers came in. It's no secret to any of us. About a week ago they came in, and so we reached out to them and said, hey, what do you want to do? Do you want to leave it to MMB, or do you want us to tweak on some things? Or do you want to take a look at it yourself? And so they were open to adjustments, and so this bill reflects the adjustments. It's down about 15%, or about $20 million of their asks, and it's across a board proportionally to each of the projects. And they also had some turnbacks projects and some other things, and they'd left wisely left some money on the bottom line. So, and that's kind of in that section is, and if you have questions, I'll stand for that later. Or we have some the author and deeper experts behind me here that have served and picked out those projects. So going on to the arts and cultural part of the bill, we had a couple projects that are in there. Representative Dettmer and had a bill, and so did I. We were working on, and I think he's going to speak in a few minutes on this. But there's a memorial out on the mall, and we're able to incorporate that, and so that's going to move along for the betterment of Minnesota. This article, in Article 2, has language that extends the appropriation in all the funds, so parks and trails, arts and culture, outdoor heritage, and I don't know which one I didn't mention, parks and trails. So anyways, all four of the funds will be extended 1 year, and then in the arts and cultural, some of the projects are going to see a 2-year extension. And so that allows them given the COVID situation, opportunities to do these projects beyond the deadline here and to continue the good work. There's also a provision in here that Representative Nelson worked on. It's and Senator Kiffmeyer, I believe, it's Arts Board allowing them a year to move in, stretching out the relocation deadline. And then the big thing, I think we have some language in the House bill and in the Senate. It was agreed upon with Senator Rood and their team and our team, and it's to it'll help maintain some of the financial stability in these organizations. They've been hit so hard in the arts and cultural area, so it allows them a little more flexibility in how to spend the funds. And this is going to help, libraries all over the state. We've kind of heard what's going on at the Minnesota Zoo, and this is true with all the zoos that get some of this funding. Libraries, I can't see Yerdal here, but maybe the Litchfield Opera House or Bobby Gunther's museum down there, the Green Giant. But, these things all over the state, the county fairs, helps them to give them a little flexibility in spending the money. Minnesotans really value these funds, and they've been able to do a lot of good work all over the state, and you can see it right now just how popular the parks and trails are. And actually in the metro we've had a problem where they're actually too full, and so the maintenance and different things in the parks are just super popular. And a lot of these funds go to that, and the same with fishing license, and so the outdoor heritage part is obviously very popular, and so it's exciting for the future of Minnesota that we have this opportunity, but also that these monies go to great investments throughout Minnesota. I'm pretty proud of when you look into these bills, how our partners like Trouts Unlimited, some of the conservation groups, how their prairie restorations and the different projects, if you look at it, please look at it. These things are all over the state, and just really good work being done. The arts organizations are spending money. The money goes to the big organizations, certainly, like in Ordway, but there's also maybe a Potter up in Representative Fadian's district that'll get funds and can do good work. But with that, I'll stand for questions or yield to other members that have some comments. Thank you, Madam Chair and members. Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Representative Lilly. I see Representative Erdahl would like to be recognized. Representative Erdahl.
Hello. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. And I'd like to thank Representative Lilly for his work on this. Legacy is not always easy to put together and to pass. As a past chair and member of his committee, I have found by firsthand experience. But we have an obligation to distribute this money as intended by the people of Minnesota and as directed by the Constitution. Would Representative Lilly yield for a question?
He will yield. Representative Erdahl.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Representative Lilly, I'm just wondering, were there any changes made to the recommendations from the Outdoor Heritage Council?
Representative Lilly.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and Representative Erdahl. First off, I want to thank my committee. I had a good committee. I had 3 former chairs on there, so they make you a little nervous. I have Chair Murphy on there and former Chair Erdahl, and it makes you a little nervous. Bobby Gunther, I reached out quite a bit for advice and that sort of thing. But to the question there was basically no changes. We respected their, through the conversations that we had, we respected the proportion proportional cuts based on their last meeting, and that was kind of an executive board decision. We also, I failed to mention that I guess there was one addition. We have in this bill that the meetings will be broadcast where they can be made public where possible. And the upside of that is they've got really a good story to tell. I mean, they really take it serious on looking at these projects. So we thought it'd be great if Minnesotans could take a look and see what's going on. And I think they'll be proud of the work that the Outdoor Heritage Council is doing. Thank you, Representative Erdahl.
Representative Erdahl.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Representative Lilly, for your answer. I think it's very important to stay quite true to the Outdoor Heritage Council's recommendations. In the past, trying to vary from that has been problematic. So I'm glad that you are sticking with it, and I urge support of this bill. Thank you.
The member from Washington, Representative Dettmer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. And again, thank you, Representative Lilly, for bringing this through your bill. I know this has been a 5-year project, members, and I think the people of Minnesota can be very proud of what we've been able to do over 5 years. You know, this project is really a $750,000 project, a memorial that's going to be built on the campus here at the Capitol, just south of the World War II memorial. And again, back in 2016, a citizen came into my office and said that we need to have a memorial for the Minnesota veterans who have served in various wars and have received a recipient of the Medal of Honor, which is the highest honor you can get in our serving our country. And so in 2017, this is when we brought forward, the legislature brought forward $250,000, and there was a committee formed, and we designed the memorial. A lot of people were involved with this. I know Commissioner Larry Shellito at that time was very involved, as myself, and different senators and representatives. Representative Lilly was part of that, Representative Gunderson, and also Representative Murphy. And I think in 2016, we actually Minnesota was the host to the 2016 Medal of Honor National Convention. And I was honored to be able to meet 45 different Medal of Honor recipients from around the country. And the last Minnesota Medal of Honor recipient, Leo Thorsness, a Vietnam War veteran, was laid to rest back in 2018, February 14, 2018, and at the Arlington National Cemetery. And he was a pilot during the Vietnam War, was shot down, and spent 6 years in the Hotel Hilton in Hanoi. And he has quite a story. In fact, there's a movie you can actually just Google his name, Leo Thorsness, and you can see his story. He also has a book out. But again, this is the highest honor that a person who is serving our country can receive for their service, and it's the highest award of value against an enemy force. Along with not only building the memorial, which will start sometime this fall, of the $750,000 that's going to cost to build this memorial, the majority of that was through private funding from around the state. Different corporations, different people, different individuals were able to put money together to build this. We've already had the groundbreaking ceremony. And there's an education piece to this also. If you go to the website, Minnesota Medal of Honor Memorial.org, you can see everything that has been put together for this project. There's an education part of this, where that memorial is going to be an education piece for our students from our different schools. And there's also a curriculum. And that curriculum, is entitled the Medal of Honor Character Development Program, because character does count. It's a program to teach students, our elementary students, and now they're developing a high school program, and they train teachers how to develop and how to provide this curriculum to their students. So it's a real honor to be part of this project. I'm looking forward, we've already had the groundbreaking ceremony over a year ago, and looking forward to the completion of the project. And again, Representative Lilly, thank you again for putting this, in fact, the money was already allocated in 2017. It went to the Department of Administration, and then for some reason, it didn't engage, and it was sent back to the Legacy Committee, and we brought it back. So it's not really new money. It's money that's already been allocated back in 2016. So thank you so much, Madam Speaker and Representative Lilly.
Representative Heinzman wishes to be recognized. Representative Heinzman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Chair Lilly, if you would yield for a question.
He will yield. Representative Heinzman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So, Chair Lilly, you said there's been a reduction in the funding, and I'm wondering, across the board, what is a percentage or the percentage of reduction? And I'm assuming that has to do with a reduced expectation in the amount of revenues coming in. My second question would be, if it isn't enough of a reduction, how does the legacy funding mechanisms work if it doesn't cover the appropriation?
Representative Lilly.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Lead Heitzman. Just a defining question, was it simply related to the outdoor heritage funds or to the various funds?
Representative Heinzman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Chair Lilly, I'm referring to the appropriations we're discussing today.
Representative Lilly.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and Lead Heitzman. So, as I mentioned in my opening comments, so the outdoor heritage portion of the bill, we were able to work with them, and they had some money on the bottom line, and they also had some projects that were not completed, so turnbacks, or what exact term, but that's what I would call it. So after the MMB numbers, they came back and they agreed to do about I think it was about a 15% cut, which is about $20 million across the board. So honestly, if that was not enough, and the cuts end up being deeper, then at that point MMB would come in and do cuts, and I would hope that they would respect the council's efforts there. In the other funds, they've reached out to the Parks and Trails, say like the Greater Minnesota Parks and Trails, and they've agreed to hold back on some of the second year's funding, I think is what I thought I heard. And then to see the arts and cultural, they're going to cut across the board in the different funds proportionate as well, as best they can. And that'd be the MMB doing those. We tried to reach out to them, and it was a little complicated because each different organization, so it's museums, and it's just so many different moving pieces. So that's going to take some effort. In the clean water portion of the bill, we tried to reach out to them. We had a wonderful a Zoom meeting with their leadership, and Mr. Jewell from up in Duluth area and Mr. Gardner, and we kind of thought we could do the same thing we did with Lassard Sam's, but unfortunately they came back with information late, and to do the cuts, I believe MMB is going to do the cuts in that area. So sorry, that's a long answer. It's with the 4 funds, each one was a little bit different, but it's a great question.
Representative Heinzman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. If Chair Lilly would continue to yield.
He will yield. Representative Heinzman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My last question would simply be along the lines he was explaining. Chair Lilly was mentioning that there was going to be a loosening of some of the requirements to make sure that the funds can be used, which I think in most cases makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense to make those dollars available in spite of the COVID-19 problems. I am wanting to know what protections are in place to make sure that those funds can't be misappropriated, and how confident are you, Chair Lilly, that that's not going to happen, as we have seen in times past?
Representative Lilly.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and Lead Heitzman. That also is a great question. And I think we are really trying to respect the changing world and the need with the COVID, and you know, everything is complicated, you know, like a burn unit going out or different things, but this is the arts area, of course. But there has been, early in the legacy fund, there was some not appropriate uses, and hopefully those lessons, not hopefully, they better be learned. I've got my friend over here to the right, Representative Green, who's been diligent, and actually I greatly respect him for that. But anybody that gets these funds know that that these are special dollars that Minnesotans have put into this fund, and certainly the bar is very high, and the expectation is that good work is done. And I like you, Lead Heitzman, and others, I'd be very disappointed if they weren't spent wisely to help us through this situation.
Representative Heinzman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I appreciate Chair Lilly's comments. That will be enough. Thank you.
The member from Mahnomen, Representative Green.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I will have a couple of questions for Chair Lilly, but just want to go over some numbers for you. Once again, we see a lot of land being purchased and a lot of land being going into conservation easements. And in this particular bill, even during a time of downturn, when the people who are paying this money in on every single thing they buy in Minnesota, we continue to buy more land. And in this particular bill, we have I'll just say it's 9,621 acres in fee that they'll be purchasing, another 9,498 acres in conservation easements. So that's about 19,000 acres that'll be out of production in Minnesota again. And we're already at about a third of the land in Minnesota that's no longer, it's in some form of public entity. It's not usable, not taxable, and everybody else makes up the difference. But out of the 9,600 acres that's being purchased here, nearly 6,000, so it'll be 5,837 acres, will not be getting PILT payments on it, where only 3,700 will. And this is really important to us, and this is something that I talk about all the time, because not only do we lose the tax value in greater Minnesota when this land goes away, we also lose the ability for young families to move there. It drives up the cost of our land, and it's just really, really difficult for anybody to start a family and who wants to realize the American dream, because the state continues to buy up this property. The other thing is when this land goes in and it's without PILT, what that generally means is that this land is not even retained by the state. In some form or another, it goes into the federal government or some other agency such as that. So this is not a good idea. And some of the comments made here today are so true, and I hope people read between the lines and listen to those comments, because we hear of the hard work of the Outdoor Heritage Council, and we only met a couple times on this bill. And for the years that I've been here and worked on these legacy bills, very seldom, if ever, do we veer off the path of what's recommended to us. And it's almost like there's not even a reason for us to be there, because why don't we just wait for the agencies or the councils to put this stuff forward, and there's very little oversight on any of it, as we saw with the Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund. Now, because we asked questions, they did say they changed their policy, but they also refused to change their curriculum and their the way that they do things, because they weren't going to put any restrictions on the way they spent the money, and apparently the legislature just said okay. So those things are just unacceptable, just unacceptable. There is another issue here with the land that the DNR now is going to be managing, another 18,000 acres here, depending on how much they give to the feds. And they can't manage what they've got, and I can't stress that enough, members. I know that the White Earth Nation right now has been offered a parcel of land from the DNR for $1, and it's state land, and they're trying to dump it because they can't afford to manage it. They can't afford what they have. They're not managing the land. If you would take the time to come out to Greater Minnesota and see the shambles that our state land is in, you'd be very surprised. And I've recommended to my tribe they don't take it, because even though they're getting it for $1, it comes with the stipulations that they have to manage it in the same way the DNR requires them to, but the DNR can't afford to do it, so how can our tribe afford to do it? So to continue buying up this property, to continue to let these funds go through unchecked is just simply not acceptable. And I did hear that Representative Heinzman asked a question that I had, but I didn't really get an answer that I understood. So maybe if Representative Lilly would yield for a question.
He will yield. Representative Green.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Lilly, on the reserve funds, now you said that there was some funds still in reserve, but I didn't see that. So maybe I missed something in between the last time you guys met and worked on this bill. So how much money is still left in the reserve, and in which accounts is that reserve available to?
Representative Lilly.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and Representative Green. So what I was referring to was in the Lessard-Sams portion of the bill, and maybe I mistook, but I thought I understood that they had not spent the bottom line. We respect the 5% in all funds, leaving that on the bottom line, but it was my understanding that they had a little above that, whether that was turn back projects that kind of left a little bit on the bottom line, or if it was left intentionally, and maybe Representative Fabian or Representative Becker-Finn could speak to that. But that was my understanding, that there was a little bit. It wasn't a lot, but it helped. And then the forecast didn't come back as bad as at that point as maybe as we thought. So I think originally we were thinking we'd have to cut even deeper, so the cuts weren't as great. So that's why it ended up being around 15% to my understanding. And then since I'm up, I just want to say that these purchases are very targeted. They're not, they respect what you're saying, and I know you've been saying that for years, but a lot of from following it, and when I was a member, a lot of the purchases have moved. They're not buying as much land, but they may buy land that's like a connecting parcel. And to be clear, the locals are consulted. And often what happens too is, we have people that want to sell their land. There's people that want to buy, and there's also people that want to sell. So you get into the property rights arguments as well. But no, I very much respect your question.
Representative Green.
Oh, thank you, Madam Speaker. I still don't think I got a clear answer, but I'll look that up, because when I was looking at this as it was coming in, it looked to me like the reserves were gone. And so I want to double check on that, because should something happen, then and the money already is allotted to be out there, it's harder then to go back and reduce those projects when there's already people working on them. So we need to look at that. But I will address the people wanting to sell their land as the people wanting to buy it. Because last fall I got another call, which I do get quite a few, but this was one that involved a lot of land, and it was south of me, but it was good farmland. And there was a young farmer who had been renting it for the few years that he had been farming, and the people that he was renting from wanted to sell it. And he was actually outbid by the state of Minnesota. And you talk to the DNR and they'll tell you that doesn't happen, but when I talk to the folks on the ground, they say it absolutely happens. And now he's got, I think it was like 2,600 acres, something like that, in this one area that was affected. How much they actually bought, I don't know. But yes, the state did come in and purchase that. And so as far as a willing buyer and a willing seller, what I've been asking for years is, and never gotten an answer and still haven't, is how much does the state want? With a third of our property and our land mass already gone into an area where no private person can have access to it again, how much do you want and how much are you going to keep buying? And so at some point, the buyer, or in this case the state, should be able to say, this is what we want and we don't want any more than this. And as long as we continue to take state funds and bid against people for private property, yeah, we're going to be able to outbid them because they have restrictions and we apparently don't. And so I've heard the arguments that the state can only pay so much, but they get around that, and they get around it in different ways. And one way is to go through the non-government agencies like the Ducks Unlimited and Pheasants Forever, because they can go in and pay large amounts. They're still getting the same money, and then later they turn the land back to the state. So it's a problem. So I won't be supporting the bill today. That's probably not a surprise for anyone, but this still has a tremendous amount of problems. And I will say I do recognize that there's good projects. I'm not saying every project is bad, but I'm saying it is our job to oversee these things, and I don't believe that we're doing a great job at that. Thank you.
The member from Ramsey, Representative Becker-Finn.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I can answer a couple of the questions too, just to clarify some things. So first, I want to just remind folks that in 2008, the Minnesotans overwhelmingly voted in favor of the Legacy Amendment, and our state constitution states that the dollars dedicated to the Outdoor Heritage Fund may be spent only to restore, protect, and enhance wetlands, prairies, forests, and habitat for fish, game, and wildlife. Especially important now, these dollars will keep important natural resources initiatives going, even at a time when so much is uncertain. This investment in our state will have impacts now for those working on the projects and protect the Minnesota we love for future generations. These public lands belong to all of us, and our access to the great outdoors is especially meaningful during these challenging times. And I encourage folks to find a WMA or other state land, and remember that it's not just our state parks that belong to all of us, and there are many ways to access the outdoors, and especially to keep socially distant at this time. We have WMAs across the state, including, within easy driving distance to the metro area and all the way up to the north end of the state and the south end of the state. Whether you hunt grouse or pheasants or just want to go for a hike in the woods, those are all accessible to us. In addition to the dollars allocated, our bill this year includes an important provision to enhance transparency and citizen access to the work that we do. This provision will require that meetings be live streamed and saved for future access. As we discuss funding these dollars that belong to all of us, I think it's imperative that the public understand how we got to those decisions and what kind of testimony and information we are hearing as we go forward. We are ultimately accountable to the public, and I hope that this effort towards greater transparency will be extended to other areas of our government in the future as well. I do really want to thank the citizen members of the Outdoor Heritage Council. We put in many long hours together over the course of the entire year, and many of the members traveled great distances to participate in our meetings. It has been really rewarding to work with all of you to get through this final product that we got to together. And so to that, these recommendations were unanimous coming out from the council, and that's a council that includes both DFL and Republican legislators as well as citizen members. And the only changes that were made to the funding was the 15% reduction proportionally to each project to reflect reduced sales tax revenue. This 15% haircut decision was made by our council chair and vice chair. And I do want to note that they are both citizen members and not former elected officials. We did confirm that all these projects are scalable, and I think that they made the right decision regarding that proportional cut that is fair to each of the projects that was passed unanimously by the council. As well, there is a 5% reserve in the account that will stay in the account as required by law. Finally, while partisan games may be disrupting other things, this is a bill that members of the council can be really proud of, and members, we can be proud to vote yes for today. Thank you.
The member from Martin, Representative Gunther, wishes to be recognized. Representative Gunther.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Chair. And members, as a former chairman of the Legacy Committee, I recognize much of the conversation is going on already, but there's a difference between where Steve Green lives and where I live. We have very few acres of public lands for hunting, and we cherish them very much. We encourage people from all over the state to come hunt pheasants. We have a great pheasant crop. Feel free to come down here. But there's a lot of things he mentioned that I helped him start out with the deal. He didn't need much help, but when I first got on as chairman of the Legacy Committee, I had a very good mentor, Mary Murphy. Not only told me what I should do, but she put it down on a piece of paper, and I hope we give credit to those chairmen before, because this is one of the most nonpartisan committees in the legislature. This is a committee that does nothing but benefit people from all over the state. And I'm totally amazed at how much hunting and fishing land there is in the 7-county metro area, and how much they enjoy the benefits of the Legacy Committee, like us people in greater Minnesota. So I encourage everyone to vote for this bill, and I applaud Chairman Lilly for the great job that he did. Thank you.
The member from Ramsey, the author of the bill, Representative Lilly.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, members. I was pretty happy to hear former Chair Gunther there. Boy, we're going to miss him. Good person. But no, it's been an honor, and you know, I've talked to all the previous chairs, and we have tried to do the good work here for Minnesota as they did, laying a great base. You know, I'm just lucky to be at the helm right now, but you know, we have a great committee, and it was such an unconventional year. With this COVID, we kind of actually wanted to dig in and look into different bills, and we just didn't get the opportunity. And I really, there's so much good work that's going on in here, and you know, this legacy is amendment, and the work that it does all over Minnesota is still hugely popular. And I really want to just quickly, I want to thank my staff, Mike Molzon and Katie Hirsch, and also Amy with your team. She's actually helped quite a bit too, and Callie from the past. But our nonpartisan staff, man, we've got a team. We are so lucky. Helen Roberts, Janelle Taylor, Mary Mullen, and Brad Hagmeyer, you know, they're competitive a little bit with the people across the street, which I like. And of course, they're competitive with us. Even one of them's got a nickname. He's called Senator even. But, you know, I'm pretty proud of our work, but the bottom line is this work it's really vital. We don't hear a lot about the arts community and the wisdom of the leader Winkler. We got together with the arts community on a Zoom meeting, and there's 1,800 organizations around the state that are doing arts work, and they're really struggling. It's like not tomorrow a play starts up or anything like that. I mean, it's going to take a while, and these communities are just like everything else is struggling. So this bill is going to make a difference. But thank you to hearing the bill today, and very much appreciate the discussion, and thank you for hopefully your green votes.
Hearing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the bill. Members on the phone, please be ready when your name is called in alphabetical order.
Remind them it's House File 2682.
And members, as a reminder, we are voting on House File 2682.
Acom.
Acom, aye.
Acom, aye. Albright. Albright, aye. Anderson.
Anderson, aye.
Anderson, aye. Backer.
Backer, aye.
Backer, aye. Bonner.
Bonner, aye.
Bonner, aye. Barr. Barr, no. Baker, excused. Becker-Finn. Becker-Finn, aye. Bennett.
Bennett, aye.
Bennett, aye. Bernardi.
Bernardi, aye.
Bernardi, aye. Bierman.
Bierman, aye.
Bierman, aye. Bow.
Bow, aye.
Bow, aye. Brand.
Brand, aye.
Brand, aye. Cantrell.
Cantrell, aye.
Cantrell, aye. Carlson, A.
Carlson, A, aye.
Carlson, A, aye. Carlson, L.
Carlson, L, aye.
Carlson, L, aye. Christensen.
Christensen, aye.
Christensen, aye. Claflin.
Claflin, aye.
Claflin, aye. Considine.
Considine, aye.
Considine, aye. Daniels.
Daniels, aye.
Daniels, aye. Doubt. Doubt, aye. Davids.
Davids, aye.
Davids, aye. Davney.
Davney, aye.
Davney, aye. Dean.
Dean, aye.
Dean, aye. Damath.
Damath, aye.
Damath, aye. Dettmer. Dettmer, aye. Drazkowski.
Gruskowski, no.
Drazkowski, no. Eklund.
Eklund, aye.
Eklund, aye. Edelson.
Edelson, aye.
Edelson, aye. Elkins.
Elkins, aye.
Elkins, aye. Erickson.
Erickson, aye.
Erickson, aye. Fabian.
Fabian, aye.
Fabian, aye. Fisher.
Fisher, aye.
Fisher, aye. Franzen.
Franson, aye.
Franzen, aye. Freiberg.
Freiberg votes yes.
Freiberg, aye. Garofalo.
Garofalo, no.
Garofalo.
Garofalo, no.
Garofalo, no. Gomez.
Gomez, aye.
Gomez, aye. Green. Green, no. Grossel.
Grossel, nay.
Grossel, no. Gruenhagen.
Gruenhagen, no.
Gruenhagen, no. Gunther.
Gunther, aye.
Gunther, aye. Haley.
Haley, aye.
Haley, aye. Halverson. Halverson, aye. Hamilton.
Hamilton, aye.
Hamilton, aye. Hanson.
Hanson, aye.
Hanson, aye. Hassan.
Hassan, aye.
Hassan, aye. Hausman.
Hausman, aye.
Hausman, aye. Heinrich.
Heinrich, no.
Heinrich, no. Heinzman.
Heinzman, yes.
Heinzman, aye. Her.
Her, aye.
Her, aye. Hertas.
Hertas, aye.
Hertas, aye. Hornstein.
Hornstein, aye.
Hornstein, aye. Howard.
Howard, aye.
Howard, aye. Hewitt.
Hewitt, aye.
Hewitt, aye. Johnson. Johnson, aye. Jordan.
Jordan, aye.
Jordan, aye. Jurgens.
Jurgens, aye.
Jurgens, aye. Keel.
Keel, aye.
Keel, aye. Cleavorn.
Cleaborn, aye.
Cleaborn, aye. Cagle.
Cagle, aye.
Cagle, aye. Katiza Watun.
Katiza Watun, aye.
Katiza Watun, aye. Kosnick.
Cosmic, no.
Kosnick, no. Kreshaw.
Risha, aye.
Kreshaw, aye. Kunish Podine.
Kunish Podine, aye.
Kunish Podine, aye. Lehman.
Lehman, aye.
Lehman, aye. Lee.
Lee, aye.
Lee, aye. Lesh.
Wesh, aye.
Lesh, aye. Liebling.
Liebling, aye.
Liebling, aye. Lean.
Lean, aye.
Lean, aye. Lilly. Lilly, aye. Lippert.
Lippert, aye.
Lippert, aye. Lislegard.
Lislegard, aye.
Lislegard, aye. Long.
Long, aye.
Long, aye. Lucero.
Lucero, no.
Lucero, no. Lewick.
Lewick, aye.
Lewick, aye. Mahoney. Excused. Mann.
Man, aye.
Mann, aye. Mariani.
Mariani, aye.
Mariani, aye. Marquardt.
Markward, aye.
Marquardt, aye. Mason.
Mason, aye.
Mason, aye. McDonald.
McDonald, no.
McDonald, no. Mecklin.
Meckland, nay.
Mecklin, no. Miller.
Miller, no.
Miller, no. Moeller.
Moeller, aye.
Moeller, aye. Moran.
Moran, aye.
Moran, aye. Morrison.
Morrison, aye.
Morrison, aye. Munson.
Munson, no.
Munson, no. Murphy.
Murphy, aye.
Murphy, aye. Nash.
Nash, no.
Nash, no. Nelson, M.
Nelson M, aye.
Nelson, M, aye. Nelson, N.
Nelson N, aye.
Nelson, N, aye. New. New, aye. Nor.
Nor, aye.
Nor, aye. Nornis.
Nornis, aye.
Nornis, aye. Novotny. Novotny, no. O'Driscoll. O'Driscoll, no. Olson.
Olson, aye.
Olson, aye. O'Neill.
O'Neill, no.
O'Neill, no. Pulowski.
Pulowski, aye.
Pulowski, aye. Purcell.
Purcell, aye.
Purcell, aye. Petersburg.
Petersburg, aye.
Petersburg, aye. Pearson.
Pearson, aye.
Pearson, aye. Pinto.
Pinto, aye.
Pinto, aye. Poppy.
Poppy, aye.
Poppy, aye. Poston.
Poston, aye.
Poston, aye. Pryor.
Pryor, aye.
Pryor, aye. Quam.
Quam, no.
Quam, no. Richardson.
Richardson, aye.
Richardson, aye. Robbins. Robbins, aye. Runbeck. Runbeck, no. Sandell.
Sandell, aye.
Sandell, aye. Sandsted.
Sandsted, aye.
Sandsted, aye. Sauk.
So, aye.
Sauk, aye. Schumacher. Schumacher.
Schumacher, aye.
Schumacher, aye. Schultz.
Schultz, aye.
Schultz, aye. Scott.
Scott, no.
Scott, no. Stevenson.
Stevenson, aye.
Stevenson, aye. Sundin.
Sundin, aye.
Sundin, aye. Swazinski. Swazinski, aye. Tabke. Tabke, aye. Tice.
Tice, aye.
Tice, aye. Torkelson. Torkelson, aye. Erdahl.
Erdahl, aye.
Erdahl, aye. Vang.
Vang, aye.
Vang, aye. Vogel.
Vogel, aye.
Vogel, aye. Wagenius.
Wagenius, aye.
Wagenius, aye. Waslowick.
Woslowick, aye.
Waslowick, aye. West. West.
West, no.
West, no. Winkler. Winkler, aye. Wolgamott.
Wolgamott, aye.
Wolgamott, aye. Zhang Jie.
aye.
Zhang J, I. Zhang T.
Young T, aye.
Zhang T, I. Joachim. Joachim. Speaker Hartman. Who do we have? Just Joachim. Joachim.
Joachim, aye.
Joachim, I.
Joachim, aye.
There being 110 ayes and 21 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to.